Welcome to the Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission.
I'll call the meeting to order. Okay.
First, we'll have our management assistant, Denise Janine, have a roll call to demonstrate our quorum.
Okay. Commissioner Winkler, absent today. Commissioner Cowan.
Here.
Chair Stanbaugh.
Here?
Commissioner Dent. Here. Commissioner Cass.
Here.
Commissioner Gazi Edwins.
Here.
Commissioner Sova.
Here.
Councilmember Nelson.
Here.
Councilmember Radina.
Here.
Vice Chair Garber.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Public comment.
Hello, my name is Teacher Barton. I was born and raised in Ann Arbor. I'm an Eagle Scout. I earned my Eagle Scout reward here. I'm a retired Peace Corps volunteer, a former BIG in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, a former instructor of the Red Cross. I've dedicated most of my life for the betterment of my society. Over 3 months ago, I was denied access to city services, and then I was denied due process to be informed what I actually did and how I can resolve this issue. My council member Nelson, was campaigning in my neighborhood where I own property, and she didn't recognize who I was, so I was able to talk to her. Thank you for being honest with me. I do appreciate that. She told me to contact this commission. When I contacted this commission, I stated exactly what happened, but I also stated that there is much more, and I would like to speak with someone from this commission. The response I got was from Leslie stating that had nothing to do with the actual complaint. She was talking about policies and procedures and made a conjectural statement saying they're all online, which I'm glad you admitted that is incorrect. My follow-up emails asking to actually speak with someone on this commission about this issue, about me being denied services and due process in the city that I was born and raised in, was again ignored. I again went back down to City Hall to try and actually get due process and find out why I'm being denied services. I was again denied, and again denied access to speak with the city administrator. Point blank told he's refused to speak with me. I again filed the complaint again with this commission, and Leslie again ignored the actual mentioning any of the issues of denial of due process or my request to in any way set up a meeting in any capacity with any member of this committee. I finally did get a response from Leslie stating that she spoke with the city, and now after my claim has been closed, she's now willing to speak with me. So I hope that it is not the policies and practices of this committee that they refuse to speak with someone who files a complaint until after you close their complaint. Because that means that this commission is more about protecting the city from the citizens instead of the city or citizens from the city abuse. So I hope that someone will actually bring this up and actually reopen my case and actually talk to me and speak with me before you close my case. I think that is reasonably acceptable, that someone from this committee will actually speak with the citizen that files a complaint before you close their complaint. I think that is at least decently acceptable. This is the Human Rights Committee. I, as a citizen of America, I'm allowed due process. I completely and directly stated that I'm being denied due process by my city. I've contacted the lawyers and every possible person I can. I was told by the liaison from the City of Ann Arbor Commission to contact this commission, and the only response I get are avoidance of actually trying to speak with me, avoidance of actually mentioning the lack of due process, and then just told that she speaks with everyone else but me and my case is closed, and only after, 5 minutes, ma'am, only after my case is closed are they willing to speak with me. What is the point of speaking with a citizen who has a complaint only after you close their complaint? That is inappropriate. In no way due diligence, in no way respecting the citizens who have actually come out and trying to use this committee and justify the validity of this committee. When you guys refuse to speak with someone until after you close their case, and I'm not blaming all of you because I've only had contact with one of you, but if no one else in this committee is willing to speak with me or to challenge and say they're going to reopen my case until someone speaks with me, I think it does fall on all of you that you're actually here to protect the city from the citizens instead of protecting the citizens from the city. Because that's not justice, that's not restorative when you refuse to speak with someone until after you close their case. Thank you for listening to me. You have a good day.
Thank you. Let me just say that I'm willing to talk to you. I closed the case because it was not in our jurisdiction.
You can speak with me.
But I can certainly speak with you. I did write to you.
Close the case before you're willing to speak with me. That's the problem, ma'am. You can say you can speak with me now, but until you reopen my case, anything you say is just unicorn horns and rainbow gold. It means nothing.
Okay.
So how about you say you're going to reopen my case, speak with me? How about you say in this committee, there's still an ongoing case? In this meeting, say there's still an ongoing case, and then it's my case, please.
I will consider an ongoing case and I will call you. Is that,
That is not what I asked.
what do you want? Okay, I can open it, but
Thank you.
okay.
So, and the part that says if there's any ongoing business, I would like to have my case be stated as it's ongoing. Are you willing to directly state that?
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is there anything else online, on telephone?
No, not at the present time.
Okay. In that case, let's talk about the agenda. Does somebody want to, can we have a motion to look over and approve the agenda?
I motion.
I second.
Let's have a discussion. Any changes to the agenda as you see it? Additions, subtractions? There's no discussion. Let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? First thing on the agenda is the minutes for May 11th. Motion to,
I move we approve the minutes.
thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion on the minutes? Nothing? If there's no discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. I'd like to start these meetings with sort of follow-up on what's going on in city council and what's going on with outside subcommittees that we're a part of, some of us are a part of. City council, Travis and Elizabeth, anything you'd like to report to us?
Yeah, so super relevant, I think, to this commission. If folks have not seen the news, as of this morning, Chief Cox was announced as the new police commissioner in Boston. So he will be leaving the city. So I think, we thank him for his service to the city and wish him well as he returns back home. But that is certainly relevant, I think, to this body. And then I can give another brief update. I was just talking to Commissioner Sova. We are continuing to try to press forward on getting some final language for facial recognition. It continues to kind of slowly move along. But I did have another conversation with Councilmember Song last weekend as well. And so I think we're going to try to put our heads back together and keep pushing for some final language that we can consider.
Okay.
Thanks.
Do you have a sense of what the process will be after Chief Cox leaves at the end of the month?
I do not. It's possible that Councilmember Nelson might have a little bit more familiarity, having been.
I know
were
you
here
don't.
when
You
he
haven't
was
talked
hired?
about it
Yeah.
yet. Just curious.
Yeah, we ended up with finalists that the last go-round, and I don't know how the process may or may not be different this time around. We did have a round of finalists who participated in an interview with council and a meet and greet with members of the public. And then I believe that the city administrator at the time made a recommendation for who to hire. I believe that was the process. It feels like a very long time ago now. I actually have a small update. We had discussed at the Commission on Disabilities Issues, we had we have been discussing for some time the need for a coordinator at City Hall around disability issues and coordinating complaints that might be filed relative to the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. And so we have, after quite a lot of conversation, we are having a meeting with the city administrator, I think, next week or the following week to talk about that. I think that's relevant to this commission.
Yes. Am I right in thinking that the city clerk is now?
Yes.
How's that?
Yes, and we established that a couple of years ago and felt that it was inadequate, and there were
Yeah.
a lot of topics that we're interested in raising around how needs are met, how complaints are raised, how concerns are raised, and what the response is at the city level.
Good. So you're thinking of hiring somebody to have that exclusively?
Yes, because we're realizing that there are a lot of, there are a lot of issues that intersect with the needs of the disabled community, and somebody who could coordinate that would probably be very helpful.
Any other questions on any of these? Thank you, folks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For Councilmember Nelson. So will this be someone who it's beyond just ADA complaints? It would be accessibility issues in general?
Yeah, I'd have to look through my email. We came up with a list of several issues that we felt like there wasn't, like right now, there is not enough of everybody remembering, oh, we should loop in the Commission on Disabilities issues. This is relevant. We need to bring, yeah. And there was a couple of years ago, I think there was conversation that this might be an appropriate role for a DEI coordinator to take on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely relevant to this
Yes.
commission,
Yeah.
if we can stay updated. And I think it's relevant in terms of we need someone beyond who can just take ADA complaints, because we know that we need to go above and beyond ADA compliance.
It's much more, yes, it's much more than that. That was sort of our starting point when we realized that the city clerk was identified to play that role, and we realized that she was more of a placeholder than an intentional assignment. Yeah.
Are you working with the Disabilities Commission?
Yeah, that's where this conversation started. Yeah, so there's sort of a subcommittee of members from the Commission on Disabilities Issues that I'm meeting with the city administrator about this issue.
Yeah, we'd like to be updated.
Okay.
That is very relevant. Thank you. Anything else? Then let's move on to ongoing HRC work, starting with complaints. Let me just give you a quick overview of what we're seeing. It is, as of about June 30th, I looked at the number of complaints, and we had about the same number as we had for the whole year of 2021. So I'm projecting it probably will double this year, the number of complaints we have. One of the differences, there are a number of differences, but one of the differences is that we have the source of income ordinance and the Fair Chance Housing Ordinance, and that is getting us into housing, something we hadn't really had much in the way of complaints about before, and something we're still learning about. And that is getting us complaints that sound like they might be discrimination, which is what we handle as a commission, but aren't really. They're more landlords acting badly or renters acting badly, but it's that kind of thing. So we're getting more of those kinds of things. So it's changing a little bit of how we're working and how we're handling complaints. The other thing another way we're changing the way we handle complaints is that at our strategic planning meeting last year, we said we were going to include more people. Right now, we have about 4 people who take complaints regularly. And other people said they wanted to do it. But in fact, when the time came that they needed to do it, we don't have any control about when they come, people were pretty busy. So we've only initiated one person, Keita, into the group. And we're hoping by the end of the year to initiate everybody who wants to do it. So it's not, I just want you to know that we are working toward that, but we have to take the complaints when they come. So, anything about status? Right now, we all have, all four of us, I think, have work in progress. You want to say anything about, I don't want to take an awful lot of time, but the kinds of things we're handling? I know mine is, I think most of them are housing or employment, is that correct?
Yeah.
And I've got a trespass.
Okay. Yes, that's right. Okay, so it's that kind of thing. We're moving through. I'm kind of impressed with what we're doing, and we're getting more and more, we're getting more tools and more expertise, and that's a good thing. We are also working on a database so that we can access and get a sense of what the patterns are like and be able to access enough to know if something is happening, you know, if there's a trend in some occurrences. Keita's been instrumental in helping us with that, as Denise and
Linda?
Linda. We're working
And
on
Judah?
it. So it's happening, huh?
And Judah.
And Pam, Judah and Pam, right.
And Pam, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a big job, but in other words, a lot of things are happening that you're not aware of, and just be aware that we're working on them, and if you want to find out more, ask. We're happy to share the information. Trespass. We're also working on trespass, and if you remember correctly, trespass is something we were interested in years ago, before the formation of the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission. And we're interested in making the form more understandable, more countable, so that we can get statistics on it, more user-friendly to the person who is being trespassed. So we're thinking about changing policies and also how it looks. And as a result, we've been meeting. Judy, you want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing?
So let's see, at our last informal non-quorum meeting, I reported out, but just to repeat, we had met with soon-to-be former Chief Cox and several other people from staff and City Attorney's Office. Then we reconvened a subcommittee. Pam, Linda, Leslie, and I met to do further work and taking into account some of the feedback we got from the city. And we scheduled another meeting, but we had to reschedule it because not everyone could be there. So we will meet again with our revised form. Linda's done a lot of the work on revising the form and had the genius idea of, you know, we're concerned about that everyone defaults to the 1 year maximum trespass duration. And so rather than have a bunch of different alternatives, we just say, you know, leave a blank. Trespass shall be for this duration, not to exceed a year. And so we'll see if that flies with the city, but it will give the flexibility to someone requesting it that they not have to seek the maximum,
Right.
which might just not be appropriate.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we stand. We'll hope to be meeting within the next few weeks with the city again and iron out the latest version of our proposal.
Unfortunately, we've been meeting with the police chief and the 2 deputy police chiefs, so that we don't have to change what we're doing, we just continue. And the change in police chiefs won't hurt us, I think. I think we're doing fine. So that's that. And we're also doing that in coordination. We're collaborating with the Police Oversight Commission, so that they can eventually take it over, because it is more in their bailiwick now than it is in ours. We're just finishing up work that we started. So that's that. Old business. If you remember, in In April, ICPOC passed a resolution in support of unarmed public safety response programs in Ann Arbor. We wanted to support them, and we drafted a resolution to support their resolution. That was, we thought we'd do it in May. We had to skip June as a meeting. We had problems with quorum, et cetera, and we are going to pass it today. There has already been some work done on this unarmed response. The city has already started to do some work on it. We want to make this a relevant resolution, and I have provided, you've already seen, we talked, I guess we did talk about it a little bit, a resolution at the May meeting that I have now called Alternative 1, and I have drafted an Alternative 2 that's a little bit more updated, that I think addresses more of the issues of today rather than the issues of 2 months ago. And I want to, if it's okay with you, I'd like to work on alternate 2, see if you want to make any changes, and see if you'd like to vote on it. Does that sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
So thoughts on either the 2 alternatives or on alternative 2? What kinds of things would you like to see that aren't here, or are you happy with what we've got now?
Chair Leslie, can you tell us just how they differ?
They differ in that in alternative 1, we simply said we support the resolution made by the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission, and that we would provide whatever appropriate assistance is requested with the design and implementation of such a program. Alternative 2 is a little bit more pushy. It sort of says, given our interest and the investment that we'd like to make in this, the fact that we care about it a great deal, we would like to be involved in, we'd like to be consulted about the design and implementation. And we might even go further, but we certainly, and we would also like the Police Oversight Commission to be more consulted. And this comes out of the fact that in step 1, neither of us were heavily consulted, and there's now a consulting firm who's going to help get information, gather information, and we're not given a really good direction about what information was needed, and they're going to need some help navigating and getting what we think we need to begin a good needs assessment for this unarmed response. It's, you want the first steps, you want to do the work of gathering the information and knowing what you need, and then building on that. And since this is the step we built on, I made alternative 2 to sort of make it clear that we thought we ought to be part of the decision, not just somebody who, if they need help, they'll ask us.
And have we consulted ICPOC and, Chair Jackson about this?
Yes, we have.
And what are their thoughts on this?
I think their thoughts are the same as our thoughts are going to be, and that is, we're already busy, we have lots to do.
Right.
On the other hand, there is a desire on all of our parts. If you don't like what's going on, you've got to give some time to it and spend some time and say, look, we want to be consulted. We don't want to do the work, but we want to do as much as we need to make this a success. Oh.
So maybe this is nitpicky, but, is it really for us to to insist that ICPOC be consulted? Isn't that kind of up to them?
I told Chair Jackson that I was going to do this. She said, it's up to you. And I thought, yes, I thought I'd do
So
that.
she didn't say, don't do that?
She did not
didn't
say, don't do that. She could have. I gave her that.
Well, I guess I still have the same thought then, which is let them have their own resolution to be included, and that, you know, I mean, I don't feel super strongly about it, but it seems like, you know, the commissions should each speak for themselves.
Well,
And especially if they weren't like really urging us to do that, then it seems like we're kind of inserting ourselves into their business.
that is true. I can only say that I know they've done a fair amount, actually a considerable amount of research on it already.
I'm not saying they shouldn't be consulted.
Yeah, okay.
I agree with you that they probably would be prudent if I were on city council. I just don't know that it's, as our commission, it's up to us to insist that another commission be consulted. I think it's up to that commission to,
Okay.
if that's what they want, they should say so. And even though I agree with that idea, that they would have expertise to bring to bear, that's kind of, I think that's kind of on them.
Travis?
Thanks. So, I'm looking at kind of the two, specifically to the resolved clauses, which are kind of generally the meat of the resolution there. And substantially, I read them as similar. I think, it's slightly different in that the first offers to provide assistance, where the second is a little firmer in saying that you should be consulted. I think substantially, if you're looking at them, I think both Councilmember Nelson and I can, if this passes, can kind of take this back to staff, as we have hired a firm to do a community engagement process. I think it would be appropriate for us to then, express to the administrator that somebody from this body might like to be part of that process and kind of be continuing in that process along the way. And then take that from there. That doesn't necessarily mean that, every member of this body would have to participate in that, but it's possible then that, staff might reach out and offer to kind of engage you in some of those interviews and those things from the beginning. And so I think we could have that conversation with the administrator with either one of these proposals. And so I think to Commissioner Garber's point, if there is concern about the second one, including ICPOC as well, I don't think that the resolved clauses between the two are so substantially different that the effect would change much from my
Okay.
perspective.
So does that mean you'd suggest we do which one would you suggest we do?
If you are asking for my suggestion upon
Yes.
hearing Commissioner Garber's reservations, yes, I would suggest one, which
Okay.
would potentially require less rewriting here at the table.
So I should just have it be the Human Rights Commission should be consulted? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
But what I understood, tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, that if we go with alternative one, with the understanding that regardless of what we put in a resolution, they're going to reach out to the commissions for input.
Is that what you're saying? That you want to go with alternative one?
I would leave it up to the judgment of this body with regard to which resolution it would like to move forward.
Okay.
I think what I'm saying is when I read the two of these, I don't know that what I take away from them as your liaison is substantially different, because I think
Yeah.
I would still go back to the administrator and say, this body really wants to be included. I think they, were involved in creating ICPOC, all of those things that make it relevant for you to be consulted in this process. And to the extent that, the resolution is more of a suggestion either way. But ultimately, I think I have what I need from either of these, from the body as your liaison, to go and kind of advocate for your
Okay.
inclusion in the process.
Okay. And do you think we should leave out the reference to ICPOC? Does that matter to you?
Procedurally, it may be better for you to speak on behalf of your body rather than on
That makes
another
some
body.
sense. Yeah, I can understand that. Okay. So I'd rather use alternative 2, because at least it says that we have an interest and we have some knowledge about this and there's a reason for doing it. That might be, there's another whereas clause as well. But I'd be happy to cross off ECPOC, although I hope they do, they ask them also. And I suspect that if we're going to be involved, they will want to be involved.
So, yeah, Leslie, that would address my concern, leaving 2 as is, except just striking the ICPOC
Okay.
part.
Okay.
And with, I mean, we understand that to the extent any of us that were going to be involved, we would both be invited to participate. And so,
Okay.
but I just feel procedurally more comfortable with that.
I guess I can understand that. I think they have a lot to offer, though. I certainly hope that somebody takes advantage of that information. Anything else? I have a few wording changes as I read this a second time. I wanted to, in the second whereas, strike and. In the third whereas, add and at the end. In the fourth whereas, where I say believe, where it says believe that how it is designed, it should be how the program is designed. And I think that's all. It's just makes it easier to read. Anything else anybody would want to change or? Add to this?
If you are working off of alternative 2, are you then,
Yes.
you are then also proposing to accept Commissioner Garber's request to remove?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I just struck out the Independent Community Oversight Commission.
Then I think unless others want to include others, I think you could just probably include that all as one large amendment if you wanted to for the body, because the others were relatively small changes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Can we have a motion to approve this?
I motion.
Second?
Technically, I think you might need to move to amend it with the changes. To accept those changes. Thank you.
Okay. Does somebody move to accept the changes?
I motion to accept the changes.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Then do we accept the whole thing? A motion to accept it, the resolution?
Would you like a motion?
Yes.
Yeah. I move that we accept alternative 2 as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution passed. Outreach. We have a lot to say about outreach today. We've been talking about outreach almost at every meeting this year, I think a little bit. Being aware that people are don't know their rights as much as they should, and we have a responsibility to help educate people to know their rights. And we have done some outreach to the public schools, to neutral zone, and now we are outreaching to, and now we have another reason, excuse of an outreach opportunity of that. Diana, do you want to talk a little bit about that one?
So we were contacted by the University of Michigan and a couple of students to and they were through the Spectrum Center, and they wanted us to come in and talk about our work here through the city and what the rights of students would be. And so we had some discussion with these two young people. I say young people because I'm old. And so it was an interesting conversation, and I thought, I guess, about it kind of after we hung up the phone. And I did mention to them on the phone that I wanted to make sure that we were being very clear in our intent with our education, because I didn't want to confuse university students with what the Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission covers and what we don't cover. You know, our website is, it's written in very, I think, technical language, and I think it isn't always clear to everyone what we do and don't cover. And I've got it pulled up on my laptop right now. And I think it's sometimes confusing for people. And I think we need to do better in our outreach and our marketing and our explaining of that to people. So I think we have an opportunity to go in and do a presentation, to talk to the folks that are students, to talk about what we do and what we cover. Because really what we're talking about is employment, housing, and public accommodations. That's what the Human Rights Commission covers. We don't cover things that happen on the University of Michigan campus. There are things and avenues and programs and ways that students can exercise their rights if they feel like they've been violated through programs at the university. I don't know what they are, but that isn't our lane. We have to stay in our lane here. So I think it's a good opportunity. I think both of the young people that we spoke to are gone for the summer. One of them was going to travel overseas. But they want us to come. They want us to speak for about 45 minutes. But I do think it's a good way to partner. And I think that we may even be able to have somebody from the university who could come and also talk about what avenues students have if they feel like their rights have been violated on campus. Anything you think I missed?
Well, no, I think you did a good job. They're LGBTQ students, LGBTQ students, and this would be a group of them. That's what they're thinking about, and they're thinking, I think, about what happens when they come in the city. What kind of rights do they have, or they're renting houses, or they're, doing things here. What I'm hoping that this will do is sort of force us to come up with flyer, with educational material, and with kind of a program. And if you remember, Diana also got us involved as partners for Ann Arbor's public schools, and they suggested some of the same things. Their needs are a little bit different, but having something, having an excuse to do something, because they want us to do this in the fall quarter, would be this is a good opportunity. We've got a project that has an ending. And I was thinking that we ought to get a working group to come and start addressing it. We've been talking about it for a long time. We need to look at the materials we have and look at the materials that we need, what we don't have, and maybe consider a program. How would that program look? What kinds of topics would we cover? What do we think students need? What do we think, and then ultimately, what do we think Ann Arbor public students, school students need? What about, who else might want to talk to us and have us present on that topic? So it's an opportunity. What do you think?
I'm happy to draft a brochure that's written more simply than our current website, and then just send it to you guys as a group, and then you can mark it up. And, I understand that we have to get things checked through Ann Arbor City Public Affairs and all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But I'm happy to do that. I just think that, there needs to be some more clarification about really what we do, what our role is, what the ordinance says, what we actually look into when it comes to discrimination. Because we don't handle every kind of discrimination under the sun, unfortunately. And there have to be brochures geared towards students. There need to be brochures geared towards adults. There need to be brochures in multiple languages. And so once we have kind of a couple of base brochures and we get the stamp of approval, it's a matter of having them translated, I think, and then kind of getting them out there. And even kind of, I think, simplifying what our process looks like, and clarifying that for people, so that people understand we are not enforcers. We do not go into businesses and, like the police, and enforce. I wish I could do that for people, but I do not have that authority or power. So being clear about what we do and how we can help people, I think, is also really important. Because it's vague in here. It's vague on our website. It just says, we'll report off to other government agencies. Well, for many people, they don't know what that means. So I think we can be a little more clear and thoughtful.
Thoughts? Peter?
Hi, I agree. I think that we aren't clear that our primary mechanism is mediation. And I don't think that's really clear, that when we look into a matter, it's not with the primary goal of being able to say, yes, there was, or no, there wasn't discrimination. And I think we really should make that clear to folks. I agree.
Other thoughts? Are you comfortable with having Diana draft a start for us? We've got some materials. I'd be happy to give them to you, but they're all written.
Yay, yes.
As interestingly as the brochure, as the website, I'm afraid. These people did say that they were willing to add some graphic. They had some graphic experience, and they might be able to help make it more interesting as well. Not there. Diana, do you want any help, or you just want to draft something and let us look at it and then start from there?
I'll just draft, I'll just do it, because I feel like we just need to do it. And I'll just do it, and I'll get it out to you guys, and then you guys review it, chop it, you won't hurt my feelings, and then get it back to me. Because I feel like if we have a group, it'll be like, well, I can't meet today, and where if I just do it, then it'll just be easier. And then you can look at it at your leisure.
Yeah? I love it. Okay. I don't think we have to vote on letting you do it or anything. Just go to it. Excellent. Thank you. Another kind of outreach we're doing, and we talked about this at our May meeting, but we did not vote on it. We didn't have a quorum. And I think we might want to vote on it now. And that has to do with the outreach that we have done, that you did last year, Aisha?
It was fall 2020.
Fall 2020, so it's already been a year.
I think it's been like it was
Yeah.
fall 2020.
Well, this was a program that you started in the School of Social Work. We participated by partnering with you. Sorry. And I think it was a real win-win, both for the students and for us. We came up, if you remember, with, I think it was 12 ideas or 16?
It was about 10 groups total.
About 10 groups. So we
Yeah.
came up with a lot of topics that we were interested in, that we wanted somebody to do research on. They were charged to write a report about what the problem was and about a solution that they would recommend. And we got some very interesting things and that have not only, I think, fertilized our thinking, but also have been passed around to other commissions and been useful there, too. It involves our thinking of some topics, and it involves maybe taking a meeting to listen to the best reports or the reports we want to hear. And for some of us, it means maybe being interviewed, maybe being mentoring a little bit of the students, but it's not too much of a commitment. More, I think, in the past, it's been more me who sort of has to make a talk about what Ann Arbor is like, because most of the students don't live in Ann Arbor, because these are problems generally that are Ann Arbor-based, and they will go to people in Ann Arbor to get more information, and they will then read journals and whatever and come up with interesting reports. So it doesn't actually take that much of our time, and we get a great deal out of it. Any thoughts about this before we put it to a vote?
I mean, I think that I should say, I won't be involved in the projects this year. I designed the project, and now I've given it to 2 other professors. And I believe that they're also thinking about a partnership with the Transportation Commission. So I think that you should just be aware, or we should be aware as a commission, that the professor who's teaching the course is not an HRC member.
Yes.
There might be a little bit more work involved in terms of us explaining and teaching and guiding these students, which isn't a bad thing, but it will be the reality.
Okay, that's fair. Travis?
Yeah, thanks. I thought that we discussed this at our last meeting too, and so I may have said this already. But I think actually the presentations were either my first meeting or one of my first meetings on this. And I thought it was an incredible kind of opening experience for me to join the commission and to have the students come in and do their presentations. And so, I thought it was incredibly valuable. I think I learned a lot. I think we as a body learned a lot. And to the extent that it is also a learning experience and beneficial to the students, I think it's another great way for us to, provide exposure to our city government, to those folks who might want to serve in the city government. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great opportunity all around.
Yeah, thank you. That's true.
It had a
Anybody?
huge impact on students. I mean, I had students who switched their majors.
Wow.
I had students who just they really understood the impact that local governance can have and the impact that they can have. So I definitely think it's worth our time.
That's neat.
Yeah.
I like people being interested in the things that we care about.
Right.
We have more people to work with. Anybody else? Does somebody want to make a motion that we vote on this, on accepting this partnership, and it will be something that we work on in the fall semester?
I motion.
Was that a motion? Second? Pam? It is- Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Final kind of outreach that we are doing has to do with, it's something Aisha also sort of spearheaded. It involves, so far, two things, just getting out in the public. Aisha let me know that there was an opportunity at the Michigan Theater. They were filming, they were showing Who Killed Vincent Chen, and then they were going to do a panel discussion. They did a fabulous panel discussion. The movie's kind of old, but it is always moving and always impactful. And Aisha asked, I move a lot. Aisha asked that I have some time to talk about the Human Rights Commission, and I did. And I passed out lots of our flyers that are not fascinating, but they do. And in fact, we have those flyers in Chinese, in two versions of Chinese. I mean, we have tried to do this, but I'm looking forward to yours, Diana. But that was, people appreciated that. I think people don't know very much about Human Rights Commission, and I think they should. And this was a good audience for it. Aisha, you have another announcement you want to make.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to go off of that, I think that this could be part of our larger outreach strategy, right? Making things in more accessible language, going to
Yes.
community events, explaining just in plain language who we are. Specifically with the Asian American population, we have one of the highest communities, one of the largest communities of Asian Americans in Michigan. So I think us going there and passing out our flyer in different languages is important. This other initiative isn't something that I started. It was started by, I think, Councilmember Lynn Song last year and a few others. I'm helping to organize the Asian Black Solidarity Picnic, the second annual one this year. It's happening on August 27th from 1 to 5 p.m. at Monty Beller Park. We're looking for sponsors and we're looking for organizations that we can also work with. And I have made it a point to ask if, HRC can have some flyers there. I don't think, it's not an event where we're going to be speaking at. But it's definitely an event that we should attend as representatives of HRC. So yeah, mark your calendar.
That is August 27th.
It is August 27th, which is a Saturday, I believe, from 1 to 5 p.m. at Monty Beller Park. And I'm doing that in conjunction with Kathy Wyatt from the Sheriff's Office, Mary Halchem from NAACP. Us three are organizing it.
Okay, it's a great opportunity. And I'll tell you, last year it was fabulous. I mean, it was a lot of fun and a lot of good feelings and very, very neat.
Yeah.
So, hope you can all make it. Finally, we have another issue. This is a new business. It's something that Keita Cowan introduced a couple months ago, and it's something she wanted to see us do. Keita has, years ago, been instrumental in the design and the implementation of a very successful identity card, and she's going to tell you about it, and she's going to tell you the problems it solved, the problems that still exist, and what she thinks we can do to help make it even stronger. Keita?
Hello. So I'm not sure if folks are aware of the large number of people across the country who lack access to a government-issued identification card. It's huge. Anywhere between 9 and 11% of all citizens lack access to a government-issued identification card. And of course, there are another estimated 12 to 13 million undocumented folks who don't have a government-issued ID card. And the problem with that is now, certainly post 9/11, that you need a government-issued ID card to do just about any kind of business in the United States. And that includes participate in public service. Food banks require an ID card. Toys for Tots require an ID card. You can't sign a lease without a government-issued ID card. You can't open a bank. The list goes on. It's really difficult to imagine how folks survive without it. In 2015, Washtenaw County government agreed to begin implementation of a Washtenaw County ID card available to any residents who want one. And we devised eligibility criteria that was different from the eligibility criteria that the state used, because we knew we were reaching out to folks who could not meet the state criteria. So in Michigan, as in a lot of states, you don't realize that you need a government-issued ID to get the state ID card. And the only way to break that catch-22 is to get like a local ID card, a local government-issued ID card. That then would allow you to get your birth certificate. And I mean, I did all the research, like 75% of all states require you to put forth some sort of photo ID or you can't get your birth certificate. And then people say, but you can go online and do it. If you have $125 and a credit card, you know, there are these online entities that will happily represent you. Go get your card and mail it to you, right? But folks that can't afford the $15 that the state of Michigan charges, much less the funds for the birth certificate, it's just, it's an impossible situation. So right now, I think there are maybe close to, well, no. In Michigan now, there are 3 different local government-issued ID cards based on the model that we developed in Washtenaw. So it's the Washtenaw ID card, there is the Detroit ID card, and there's the Kalamazoo ID card, right? And they're all set up on the same platform. Between all 3 cards, we're probably close to having issued 19,000. We are in conversation right now with the state to see if to see when they are going to implement a trial program to accept the local government ID cards in Washtenaw County at the Secretary of State's office. So now your ID card from Detroit or Washtenaw or Kalamazoo could prove your identity. So you can use it to get your birth certificate, and then it also proves your identity. You can use it to get your Social Security card, which is another problem, right? And then they'll give you the state ID once you've jumped, or a driver's license if you want. Imagine that. I mean, it's just crazy the things that people have been deprived of and the roadblocks that have been put in their way. So I'm really excited to see the trial come, to see, I know it's going to succeed, and to see us then be able to help folks, you know, who need it out of this, this catch-22 that they're in. Well, banks in the city of Ann Arbor are not accepting any of the local government-issued ID cards. And it is a real problem not only because it leaves folks vulnerable to being robbed, because people in the street talk about them as walking ATM cards because all they can do is cash their checks, and they're being exploited because, you know, even the bank now charges you like $10 to $15 to cash a check, and you have to have an account there at most banks now to even get check cashing privileges. So it's expensive for folks that can't afford it. They obviously are locked out of this way in which savings helps you build a more solid platform under yourself so that when you have an emergency, you actually have saved up the money to handle it and it doesn't spiral into a crisis. Well, I just worked with a young man who had an employer years ago who set up an IRA account for him, and he's disabled, and he needed access to Medicaid because he reached a point in his life where he could no longer work. The bank where his money was held would not let him close the account because even though he could prove it was his Social Security number, he didn't have an ID card. And it went on for a year until finally I just took power of attorney and used my ID card as his power of attorney. Now, that's humiliating, right? To ignore this man's right to his own money, and he has to go out and find someone else to pull his money out, and that's the problem that people are having. So I really feel strongly that that the city, that we should all stand up for, you know, people's dignity and help empower them by giving them the tools that they need to be independent and self-sustaining and not, you know, fall prey to crises just when they arise. Now, just so that I give you the sort of the full scope of what we're up against, the banks maintain that the Patriot Act requires a Know Your Consumer, right, Know Your Customer program. Every bank has to have one. They say, oh, we can't accept it because we have these Know Your Consumer programs, and that's not true. The Patriot Act, I've read it a million times, just says you have to have good reason to know their name, their address, where you can find them, and that's all. And they leave it up to the bank to determine what type of ID or what type of requirements they're going to meet. Old National Bank in Ann Arbor has agreed to accept just even the Washington ID and allow people to open accounts. And they're right now the only bank doing it. But I really feel like it is a human right violation to have a human being sitting in front of you and refuse to recognize that, you know, they've lived in this community a long time. They're us. So I really want the Human Rights Commission to be able to say to businesses, no, you know what, the threshold really is here for treating people equally. And there may be instances, for instance, federally funded housing, where they're still required, where the housing entity is still required to accept a state ID, but that's not the bank. That's just federal housing. So I think we're looking at an amendment that would mirror in some ways, in most ways, the source of income discrimination that we have already. So it would be something like to prohibit discrimination based on the government that issued the ID card. And then we can go through and indicate that yes, the only exception is under circumstances where law or regulation prohibits you from doing so.
So we could conceivably make this a protected class, basically.
Mm-hmm.
In the non-discrimination ordinance, I think.
Yeah, in fact, I would say we should term it source of government-issued ID.
Okay.
Travis?
Oh,
Yeah, Travis?
Thank you. First, I just want to thank Commissioner Cowan for work on this, and I think this is incredibly important. I actually was just talking to our clerk because of state law. She cannot accept local government ID as a valid form of identification for people to vote. And so as you're talking about barriers that folks have, I think it's so important that we normalize these IDs, that we make it standard for folks to recognize and accept them, because as you mentioned, you have to have a form of ID to get another state ID in order to vote. So, I mean, you're talking about the barriers that people have to jump over just to exercise their basic right to vote. And so I know that this is a considerable concern. And so thank you for that. I know that, there's been a ton of work that went into this since the county commission created these, or the county created these back in the, I think actually then Commissioner Robbie, who is returning to the commission, was involved in that. And so I just wanted to thank you for this work. I am very supportive of it.
Aiden?
Yeah, in the same vein, I've said many times, I've grown up in a low-income, single-parent household, and this is one of the sort of invisible hurdles that we felt we faced in terms of the associated fees and difficulties in trying to get forms of identification or government assistance that really plagued us for a long time. And I think that beyond this just being massively impressive and thoughtful, Keita, you are the first person who I've heard acknowledge it in all of my years, beyond just, my family. And so I think this is massively important. I'm firmly supportive of this. And I think, again, as Travis said, we have a real opportunity to normalize this. And I feel like, as we've seen with this expanding to the other cities, it's just one massive domino effect. And I feel like we can have a central piece in that. And Keita, that all started and will hopefully finish with you. So thank you.
thank you.
Peter, do you want to say something about how this affects people who are transitioning gender?
Oh, yes. One of the nice things that's built into the card is a level of inclusion that the other forms of government-issued ID don't have. So on the county ID card, you can put your preferred name as well as your legal name. And a lot of folks who have or are in transition, parents of folks who are in transition, get very emotional when their child is able to get an ID card, in their gender. And I tell you, if it were just that, if it just helped that one person, it would have been so worth it. So worth it. It's very moving and challenging for people to be reflected back, even at something as an ID card, right, with the wrong identity. It helps folks with disabilities, because on the back of the card, you can indicate if you want a first responder to have knowledge of a medical condition that affects you. You can put it there. And I've heard back from several, both adults and parents of children, that their folks were able to board the airplane with the ID card because in one instance, the person was autistic, and it produces some body movements that the flight crew was unaware of, and they stopped him at the gate. They wouldn't let him board. And showed them the county ID card, and then they understood what they didn't understand, so they were judging his body movements. So I think in that way, it tackles hurdles I didn't even know existed for other people, because you only really know your circumstances, your hurdles in that deep, meaningful way. So parents love it because you can put on the back contact information, right? If you find this card, or if you have my child, call this number. And I've been open and hope if folks out there or in here think of other ways in which this card can be used inclusively, to let us know, because we are ready to redesign the card now. And we're just looking for input into how else we can make it better.
Other thoughts? Elizabeth?
I just want to say how excited I am about this. I mean, I pulled up the Municode, and I'm looking at, like, places where it could fit, and I agree with you that somewhere in the mix of, like, source of income is kind of where it would go. I'm excited about the possibilities of putting this in our ordinances. This would be really, really good. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo, if I can turn on that. Echo what everyone said. It's really exciting. I have a passport and a driver's ID and all these things, but now I want one of these. It sounds like the best form of ID. For all kinds of reasons that you've just outlined.
And, we urge people to get it, even if you have every other piece of ID in the world, because then if you're carded,
Yes,
show that one, show the county ID, and then we can explain it.
yes.
And folks that, have that as their only ID aren't the only folks carrying it, right? So we can defeat stigma.
Right, worth in currency, yeah. Are you putting this forward today, or do you want critique about, picky, I have a few picky wordsmith things, but,
I think we should vote on it the next time, because this is the first time we've discussed it, or how do people feel about it?
Well, I think we need wording
Okay.
to vote on.
Oh, for the actual ordinance,
For
right.
the ordinance.
Okay, yes.
And then we need to look at the, and I gave you in your packet Kita's resolution. But I think we need the wording.
For the ordinance,
And then
yeah.
look at the resolution and see if
Okay.
we've got a plan.
That was going to be my question as well, as whether or not Attorney Radabaugh had started working on language with you, or if we needed to initiate that process, or where we are in the, sorry, my question was along those lines, is have you worked with Attorney Radabaugh at all yet on potential ordinance language itself?
No.
Okay.
So perhaps we need a couple people to go with you and
Sure, yes,
get some wording.
yeah, that would be great.
Who wants to, Elizabeth, Judah?
I would love to help work on this. This is great.
Good.
Great.
It's three attorneys that
Everything is fabulous. Travis, too.
And Travis?
Fantastic.
Good. Okay. And then you'll come back with wording and a resolution perhaps, or maybe some changes, or maybe you want some of us to look at the resolution also.
That sounds great.
Okay. Okay. I think we have a plan for next time.
Okay.
The last page of your agenda, by the way, has a picture of a sample card, just so you can see what it kind of looks like, right? And this is only the front of it, there's a back of it also.
Oh, and this is the old card. Hopefully by this time in December, we'll have a redesign. But the students from the School of Information at the U of M had a contest, and they designed it for us.
That's cool. Anything else you need from us? Kita, will you call this group together to work on this?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so you're going to chair this. Okay. I think we have dealt with everything that's on the agenda. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? Are there any commissioner communications like you'd like to share before we adjourn? No? Well, can we have a motion then to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You are a liar, Leslie. You said you'd bring it up and said you'd